All right. Is this on? Oh, she turned it off. All right. Okay, perfect. All right. Welcome everyone to our 1P13 and 1P10 review session. My name is Hussein. I'm a community co-lead here in Google Development Student Club in McMaster University, and I'll let the others introduce themselves.
Hello, everyone. My name is Harman. I am another community co-lead at the Google Developer Student Club.
Hi everyone, my name is Sahaj, and I'm another community co-lead team member in GTSC.
And hi, my name is Ervin, and I'm also a community team member.
Perfect. All right. Thank you first and foremost for coming out. We really appreciate it. This club, of course, is made by the people who attend events. So we really appreciate you coming out on this cold night. All right, let's get started. So we're just gonna go right into it. So this is just the agenda of what we're gonna go through. We're gonna go through variables and data types, operators, data type conversions, if statements, functions, lists and string methods, Booleans, and loops, for and while loops. And then at the end, we're also going to go through some of the practice quiz questions that we found was posted for you all. And yeah, so first we're going to go through variables and data types. Okay. Great. All right. I'll hand it over to Arvin.
All right, so we'll start off with variables and data types. So variables are containers that hold data. They're basically data have various different data types, as you can see on the chart. So we have integers, which are the data type in Python, we say int. We have floating point numbers, strings, and booleans. And if you want to know return the type of a certain variable, you can use the type function in Python. So you use type and you pass the variable as a parameter and will return the actual data type of the variable. But one thing to note is that when naming variables, it cannot start with the digit. And yeah, if you just look at this chart right here, you can see the usage for the different types of data types, like integers and floats.
I got a question.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll share the recording as well on the slides after the event. At the same link that you signed up on, you'll see it pop up after. No worries.
Should we move on to the pull-up?
You can go together. Ask the question here first, ask for the output, and then.
Oh. All right, so let's just run through some examples. So here we have like a couple of variables. We have X, Y, and Z with different types. So let's say for this program, if we were to print X, Y, and Z and output it, what do you guys think would be the output for line 5 right there? Print X, Y, and Z. Anyone want to take a guess?
Oh,
thank you.
like 10 dash space, space, 3.14.
Okay, let's try it out in the program and let's see. Right here. Okay, so if we run this program, just pay attention to the top line. It already shows, but as you can see, the 10 minus 6 is actually like an operator 10 minus 6, and it outputs the 4, which is the integer value, and then outputs GDSC, which you were right about the space, and then space 3.14. So that's like the first one we'll look at, and then all right, and then the next one is with the Y variable. So we're having the high in a string that has high plus Y. This one, does anyone want to take a guess what that would output if we print Y? Anyone want to take a guess? Yeah. Yeah, we'll output it here too. Actually, let's go through both of them. And then the third variable is A. We have A as the input function, and you print A is space A. So we'll output that too. All right, so you were right about that. It's high space GDSC. This is a string concatenation when you add a string with the previous string. you can do that. And then the next one is an input function, and you can see that it's like a space bar, and it allows the user to type an input. So does anyone want to give me something to type in the space bar here? Just anything? Anything? All right. What do you think happens if I click enter here? I'll just click enter. It prints out A is colon and anything, it's space in between. So this is just an example of the input function in Python. And since the input function takes in any parameter that you put in as a string, and that's why it actually adds the A is, which is a string, and then the input parameter as well. We can see the outputs here. All right, and then moving on to operators in Python, we have the addition, subtraction, multiplication, division, which are all pretty basic things. So we use these symbols in order to use it in Python. And then a pretty interesting one is modulus, which is the percent symbol, which we'll get to later. There's also floor division, which is similar to division, but slightly different. Also exponentiation. So let's see some examples here. Okay, so here we have some examples. We have three variables, x, y, and z, which are set to 5, 2, and 3. We have a and b, which is 12 and 6. And oh, it already shows the output. But if we print out x, y, z, a, and b, similar to the examples we saw earlier, it will print out 5, 2, 1, 12, and 6. Now, if we multiply 7 times 2, if we, I'll just output it too. All right, and now in line 5, if we multiply z by 2, we'll get 6 as the output. If we do z and then 2 multiplication symbols next to each other, that's actually exponentiation, and that'll be z to the power of 2, which is 9. And if we print out y times b equal to a, you'll get true, because a is equal to 12, as we said earlier, and y times b is also equal to 12. And here we have an example of, in line 9, we have just normal division, integer division, and when you, or float division, so if you do x divided by y, you get an output of 2.5, since it's 5 divided by 2. But here's an interesting one. With floor division, when you have a division, the output will round down to the nearest whole number. So it doesn't round up regardless of the decimal, which is useful. And the modulus function basically outputs the remainder when you divide two numbers. So the remainder of 5 and 2, when you divide it, would be 1. So this function actually just outputs 1. And there's multiple uses for that you'll see later on. Was there a question? Oh. Is that better? All right, and then the last example is we have x plus or equal to z. So what do you guys think that line right there does? Because that's a bit of a weird one.
Come on, people, raise your hands. Come on. We know you know it. Anyone, come on. Let's go.
There
There we go.
Okay, so when we output it, x is equal to 5 and z is equal to 3. So you're right, it basically just means x equals x plus z. So it's basically another way of just writing that. It's a quicker way that you'll use a lot in the future. And now when you print x, you get 8 here. I'll move back to slideshow. And basically, one last thing I want to mention is about data type conversions. You can use the int, float, and string functions in Python to convert numbers into different types. So x here is a string of 1111, since it's surrounded by quotation marks. And if you want to convert that into an integer, you can use the int function in Python to do so. And when you print at int _ x, as you can see, the first output here is 1111 as a integer instead of a string. And similarly, you can do this with two different integers here, or converting x base 2 to int base 10. And here you have the float function converting it to a float number. And that's why you can see the decimal at the end. And one extra thing to note is that the int function won't actually round up, it will only round down. So even if you have 3.99, it's basically similar to like floor division, it rounds down to 3. Any questions so far?
Yeah.
So, what exactly represents, the, like telling it to convert to base 10, because it's just x to, and I assume like x is binary.
Yeah, that's like the normal version and in binary, and it converts it to int base 10 as a default, like the function.
So is the two like, telling it to convert to base 10, or is it telling it like what form to convert it from?
The 2 is just saying that the number, that the first parameter is in the form of base 2, because like the program wouldn't know that. And then the int function always outputs into base 10. So basically also you're asking basically what the 2's for. Like the second parameter is just basically saying what base it is. So then that's how it outputs it. All right, any other questions? Floor division? Okay, I'll go back to. All right, so we'll see here with this example here that you can see x floor division y. So here x is equal to 5 and y is equal to 2. So when you do normal division, you can see that you get 2.5 because that's just 5 divided by 2. But what floor division does is it's basically rounds down the final answer regardless of what the answer is. So even if 2.5 should be rounded up, floor division, like think of it as like 4, like it rounds down. Yeah, that's basically it. Any other questions? Yeah. Page after this?
Yeah.
Here?
Yeah.
The base conversion?
So you're doing 2 raised to x basically.
No, this is basically just saying that x is equal to 1111. And if you have the second parameter as 2, it's basically saying that this number is with base 2, which basically means that this number isn't binary, which is like a completely different type of number. And with this number in binary, if you convert it back to normal decimal numbers, which are base 10 numbers, then it'll output 15. So you kind of treat it as a binary number rather than a normal decimal number. Yeah. 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 Sorry? Good. Yeah, if you set the second parameter as like 8, then it'll treat it as base 8. Yeah. All right, is that all?
Any more questions?
All right, I'm gonna get to slide. Okay, I'll pass it over to the team.
Okay, so the next thing we'll be looking at is if statements in Python. So I'm sure like we've already looked at these in our labs, but pretty much the general idea of if statements is that they check if a condition is true or false. And if the condition is true, then the contained block of code is executed. But if the condition is false, then the contained block of code is essentially skipped. And this may not like make sense when just reading this, but we'll look at examples to like further explain like what they basically mean. And there's different structures we can have for if statements. So we can have if-else statements, which will only execute a second block of code if the first if statement evaluates to false. And we can also have if-else statements, which is the same as an if-else statement, except the elif case will only be executed if the first if statement evaluates to false and the second elif case evaluates to true. So we'll look at examples to like understand what it basically means. So in this case, we can see we have first a variable we define in line 1, and we set equal to a Boolean expression called false. And let's skip line 2 for now, just look at line 4. This is where we essentially start off our if statement. And one thing that's important to know in the if statement is that after what is called our condition, we also have a colon. and whatever's underneath the if statement should all be indented. So in this case, our condition is whatever's after if statement, so our condition would be is underscore idle. And like I said before, that the if statement will only execute if it allows to true. But in this case, since is underscore idle is false, this if condition will essentially be skipped, and we won't see is idle in our output. And we can look at the other if statement that we have over here, and we first start by defining the variable age and assigning the value 18 to it. And then this if statement will do the same thing. We're checking if the condition of value is true. And in this case, since age is equal to 18, the part of code underneath the statement will execute. So in the output, we should expect to see idle printed. And one thing to know is that if the if statement of value is true, then the else statement will essentially just be skipped. So if you look at the output in this situation, we should see idle is printed. Does anyone have questions? Yeah.
Why do the it big underscore adult if it's just false and like we skip anyway? Like what would be the point in doing this? Why would you just do it age and start off with that?
So you're talking about like the is underscore idle and we're setting for the false?
Yeah.
So essentially that just makes you, it allows you to create like a variable, which is a Boolean expression, and you can basically check that for like different parts of your code. So for example, you want to create like a while loop later on, it will only like iterate through a while loop if the condition is false. So basically you can use it for like other applications. In this case, like we could have like for the if age is greater than or equal to 18, since it evaluates to true, essentially the block of code underneath is executed. And I guess that's like the main idea you should take away. Like if the condition evaluates to true, then it's executed. If it's false, then it's not executed.
You have to do the if is underscore adult.
That's just kind of like an example. So like show like what would happen if
It would,
like,
yeah,
yeah.
okay.
We've got another question.
Yeah. I'll do it like the next example. So I'll show like how.
Then one more question.
We have one more question. Yeah.
I'm sorry, can you say that again? Yeah, so this two then essentially will be always printing out is the
So
actually like if you not is at equally
should go to the next.
Yeah, even. Yeah.
just skip the code.
code anyways.
Yeah, you don't have to go through
So for this one, I want to ask you guys, what do you guys think will happen in this situation, I guess? I'll just give you guys a minute to think about it and tell me what do you think what the output would be in this situation? You can raise your hand if you have that.
Let me try this.
Yeah, we got one.
Got one over here.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, that's right. Should have run through and show them.
You don't need to, I don't think. You can just go through the slide.
If you go over next to the slide, it'll show the oh.
Oh, yeah, but
Yeah.
yeah, that'll be printed because essentially this is the same situation. We first start by assigning two values to two variables. And we're running through an if, elif, and else statement. And yeah, the elif statement in this case will only execute if the first if statement would be false. So in this case, since x is not greater than y, then the first line of code will essentially be skipped, and the elif statement will start to execute. And yeah. Oh yeah. I'm sorry, I can't remember.
Did you have the question?
I don't think it would really apply in the situation because we're really just looking at like the if structure. So it basically runs through like the whole structure, and if anything is valid or false, then it just kicks out sometimes.
Alright, so if I understand, you're asking how many lines the code will read or go through before it reaches the output, right? Okay. So obviously it is going to read the first two lines, x equal 1, those are the variable assignments. Then but the way Python works is it goes in order. So it'll read first, it'll check this condition first. So it got one line. This line is not read at all because this condition is not satisfied. So it goes on to this one. It doesn't read this line, no, because this one is not satisfied. This one is, right? So it reads this line, executes this line, and since it's an if statement, it moves all the way to the end of the code. So it skips these two lines. So in total, it reads 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 lines essentially. 5 lines essentially. Yeah, no problem.
Yes.
All right, so now we're gonna move on to functions. So first, we're just gonna review what is a function. I'm sure you guys went over this in class. Functions are basically reusable code blocks used to accomplish something. They're defined using the DEF keyword, and inputs into a function are known as arguments. So down here, we have example function. This first line is known as the function header. You see the DEF right here. And then every statement afterwards that it's tabbed over is known as the function block. And then over there on the left, you see an example, on your right, you see an example called high function. And the function header is the actual high function. And then within the function, you see a equals x plus 5 and returning a. So basically, as you can see, what this function does is it just adds 1 to, or adds 5 to whatever input int variable is input. And you can see the function being used down there. You set a variable to var equals 2. You set a variable b into a function call with the var as the input. And so what this does again is it just adds 5 to whatever the input is. So it would return 7 because 2 plus 5 is 7. And if you put the theoretically get 7. If you go to the Colab just to see it. Yeah. So yeah, just to prove what I just said, you got 7 once you run this code. Okay. All right, now we have some built-in functions. This first one, print, I'm sure you've seen it. Basically, it's for displaying messages into the terminal. And then you have an example usage, printing hello, and the output is hello. This next one, so I went through it, it's the import, our visitor went through it. It's the input function. It takes the user input from the terminal. And example usage over there, you have x equals input and then enter number, tell the user to enter a number. And then output, it sets x to whatever the user input is. The third built-in function here we have is len. So what this does, it just counts the number of elements in a string or a list that you input into the actual len function. For example, we have len of the string hello, and that outputs 5 because hello is 5 characters long. And then the last one I want to go over is type. This determines the data type of the input. And so, for example, we have type of the string hello, and it's a string, so the output you get is class string. And some other built-in functions include the help function, abstract, max, min, sum, and a whole lot more. You could like go on the Python or website to see a lot of built-in functions. I think before I move on, is there any questions? No, okay. Okay, this slide's gonna be posted as well, so you don't really have to worry about that. Anyway, next we have list methods. So here's some common list methods. You have append. So what this does is it appends x to the end of a list. We have list.insert, which just inserts x into the position n of the list. Over there you have list.pop. This just pops or removes the element n and returns it to whatever you call list.pop. And a special thing about this, it gives an error if the index n doesn't exist. So if you're trying to pop something from an index that doesn't exist, it will get an error back. And lastly, you have list.remove x that removes the first instance of the element x. So if you're and again, it gives an error if the element x is not in the list. So say you have like a long list and with multiple x's, it's gonna search through the list and then it's gonna remove just the first occurrence of the element x. It's not gonna remove all the x. That's one thing to note. It's gonna remove just the first occurrence. Down here we have list splicing. So you can basically access small sublists within a list by splicing it. And here's an example down here, list slice at ij. You see what it does is it slices the list where I is the start and j is the end of the list, but it doesn't include index j. So you gotta make sure you remember that it's not inclusive. So it doesn't include the actual element at j. It just has I to you might want this. Yeah.
Can you explain what you mean by first instance?
Yeah, I should probably give an example. So basically, okay, I can go back. For these example strings hello, you can see there's two instances of the letter L. So if I do hello is technically not a list, but basically if it was a list of characters, let's say, and I want to remove L, it's gonna remove just the first instance of L. So you'd have HELO as your return list. So yeah. Yeah.
Wait, are like the X and Y size of those like very set?
For the list?
Yeah.
They're just their own variables. So they could be whatever, like, I guess they would be strings because they're X's. But basically, if you have a list, you can have a list of different elements. So you can have like a string or like a number, but X would be like a string or a char, I guess. So it would just be, yeah, whatever. A char or a string, I guess. Yeah. Yeah. I think, yeah. All right, so slicing again, you can access small sublists. So basically, when you have a long list, like a list of characters, and you want just a subsection of that list, so only just part of it, you can slice it, and you can slice it by the index of that list. So like, say you have, again, this kind of stuff, but we're gonna use.
Hello. Just use hello.
Yeah, so we're gonna use hello as an example. Imagine it was a list of characters, HELLO. Basically, if you want to slice and just select, let's say ELL, you can take that part of that list by just doing the list.slice I and J, where I would be the E element, and then the J would be one after the last element, so it would be the O element. That makes sense. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I'm actually gonna go over that. Yeah. So I'm gonna go get to that. So yeah, you can ask that. Yeah. Yeah. So X is an element. So it could be a string, it could be, I guess if you put a number where X is right there, I think that might have been a question as well. It could be a number as well. It's whatever element is in the actual list. So you could have a list of like, let's say like the hello characters. And so you could put L in there, for example, and have remove L. So yeah, could be anything. Right, any more questions? All questions? Yeah. All right, now we're gonna move on to string methods. Just to recap, strings are similar to lists, but they're immutable. And what that means is you can't change an element in a list or in a string, sorry, a string. We'll get to an example of that. You can also access characters of a string using the index of the string, as I was using that hello example. So the same way, just like this, you can access elements, and you can convert strings to lists using the list string function. So we have an example here, example string, this is a string. And so when we print it, obviously we're gonna get, this is a string printed. If we print, like I said, you can access the characters using the index. So we have the index 8. So in this string, the index 8 is an A, and I know that just by printing it. And then lastly here, like I said, first strings are immutable. So if you try to change string index 8 to B, we're actually gonna get an error. And we're gonna say the error is gonna say it's a type error because it's a string and we're trying to change a string, but you can't do that. So yeah. And just to confirm that, I'm gonna run that in Colabs. Yeah, just as I extend, we're gonna have this is a string. You put that, you put the index at element 8, so elements at index 8, which is A, and then once you try to change it to B, even if B gives us an error line because you can't change string. All right. All right, any questions? All right, just as someone's asking, we have some string methods here. It's the main part of this section. So some common string methods are the string.strip. This removes given characters from the string on default. So if you just use string.strip without any arguments where it says args, so it just has nothing, what happens is it removes the leading and trailing white space. So if you have like a string that for some reason has a lot of white space or a lot of space bars before the actual string starts and after, if you use string.strip with nothing in it, it's just going to remove that white space on both sides. We have string.split here. This splits the string into substrings using the argument args. And so again, on default, it splits by the white space. So if you have like a string, like a sentence, and they're separated by white space, if you do that sentence for string.split without anything in the args, you're just going to get that sentence in the list split by the white space. And over there, we have string.join, and it takes all the items in an iterable object, and it joins them all into one string. And then, of course, the items are separated by the string. So, yeah. Any questions? Linger a little bit? Yeah. I believe we do. Yeah, otherwise, okay. All right. Seems we don't, so I'm just gonna code up an example. Sorry, which specific method did you want again? Join? Yeah.
You can use the mouse as well.
Okay, so we have, I believe.
I think strings and then print.
So we have. I'm
X
blanking.
equals hello.
Yeah, sorry. Hello. World.
Or just add a space. Yeah. Z equals X star.
I think I just need strings equals X, Y.
It should be like
I
that.
think it's like that.
Try running it. Yeah,
I don't know if it's like that, but.
we'll see. We'll find out soon. Okay,
Hello.
enter.
Oh, it's adding it to every.
Go back to the.
It's all the items in a durable object. I think it goes into one string. Separated by string.
If they've not covered it, dot join there.
You don't think you showed it? I really think. I know how to explain it though, but yeah. All right, so what I believe this is actually doing here is it's taking the string hello and and so it's joining it on each single character in world. So that's why you're getting W, hello, O, hello, R, hello. That's what it's doing. I'm pretty sure you guys actually haven't covered it, but again, it's like basically joining each string on the iterable part of this string here. So yeah.
You guys have covered errors.
Yeah, I do. Oh, any more questions? Yeah. I believe so, yeah. We could even test it. But I believe, wait, what's your name? Jasmine, okay. So what Jasmine said here is once we strip a string, I'm just gonna code that out real quick.
Maybe assign it to a variable before or something. Huh? Maybe just enter as, like, no, click on that. Oh, you know what to do? Just like, what happened? No, that would, that's
definitely.
can I,
Yeah.
what I'm thinking of right now is. Oh, trailing. We're doing strip, right? Yeah. It gets it from the end.
Oh, okay, yeah, okay, sorry about that. So, just as I was reminded by my friend Harmony here, strip only gets the elements at the end of the list. So if you do input a character over here, such as D, it's only gonna strip D if D is at the end of the string. So it's D is at the start and D is at the end here, and so that's why it strips it. But for example, when I did L,
String, you can reiterate strings are immutable.
yeah.
Oh, so this is the wrong.
So when I did L, it doesn't strip anything because L, the character L isn't at the end of any of the. Yeah. Again, if you put no argument here in this.
I don't know.
In this particular string, nothing would happen. But what I was trying to say with
Maybe add a space and
yeah. So if you have spaces before or after, what strip does is it returns just the string without the space. So if you don't have anything in the strip method, you just have whatever the string is without the space. Yeah, it only strips basically the end of the string. So
the spaces still are at the ends.
yeah, that's what. So the end,
It
so
is
including the start as well. Yeah. Both
Yeah.
ends, yeah. All right. Any more questions?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You mean, so, the trip at the end of the string, but not like at the end of, like, let's say a space of white, or at the end of.
Yes.
Yeah, at the end of the whole string. The end, so start and end of the whole string. Yeah. Yeah.
Which is essentially.
Yeah. No, it's just the at the beginning as well. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah. So yeah, we've gone from this.
Right.
All right, I think we can move on.
Next is Booleans.
All right, I'm gonna pass it off to Harmon here.
All right, so we are now moving on to Booleans. It was pretty much covered, but I am going to cover it again. Just because, oh well. So Booleans, they can have two possible values, only true or false. If you want to call them 1 or 0, sure, but this is capital T, capital F, like in Java, it's F, small t. No, Python, capital T, capital F represents true and false. They're usually used to compare values and or expressions, and they're multiple, like they can be used with like comparison operators or logical operators. So,
What next one? Oh wait, there's a code. There is a code.
okay. So if you see this code over here, x less than y, this is essentially this will generate a Boolean value of true or false. X is 2, y is 3, it's generating a Boolean value. What do you think the Boolean value will be? Shout it out. Shout it out. Come on, guys. True. Very good. What do you think the Boolean value of this is going to be? Exactly. For and, when you have an and in between, the way it works is you need both the first statement and the second statement to be true in order for the entire expression to be true. This part is true, this part is true, it will result in true. If this said z is less than y, would it be true or false? False, exactly. What about this? X is less than y or y is greater than z. True, exactly. Or only needs one of them to be true. Perfect.
Question?
We got a question here? Yeah.
Can you use Boolean, with operators like, greater than, less than, multiply?
Yeah, we have it right here. X is less than y. You cannot use it with operators such as addition, subtraction, multiplication, or division, because those are physically modifying the value of the variable in consideration over there. Any more questions before I move on to the next slide? Yeah. Yes, you can. Yes, you can. That will also result in a Boolean value, which you can use it in your if statements or your loops, wherever. Any more questions before I move on to the next slide?
Yeah.
Yep. No. If both conditions are false, it will return false. So the way AND works is if both are false, you get false. Even if one of them is false, you get false. Only if both of them are true, then you would get a true. If you want, like how you were suggesting that you want it to be true if both of them are false, you will add something called a not in here. So you would surround this in brackets, and then you add a not in here. So what not does is it essentially flips the value. So if the value is true, it will give you false. If it's false, it will give you true. Any more questions? Any takers for the questions?
Yeah.
No?
Oh, no.
Oh, wait. Oh, sorry. Here. If we didn't have a print statement, this would not be a valid code. Or like if we did not have something within the if statement, it would not be a valid code, because otherwise the if statements do practically nothing. If you have something return true, yeah, it will return true. Yeah. So if this part is true, whatever is inside this code block under the if statement, again, indented, anything under the if statement will be executed. Any questions? All right, moving on then. Yeah, so this table just shows you the different comparison operators. Double equal to is a comparison. It compares whether two numbers or two variables or two strings are equal to each other. If you use a single equal to, that is an assignment. Make sure in your tests or when you're coding, do not use a single equal to sign if you are trying to compare it. The exclamation mark in equal to is not equal to, greater than, less than, greater than, equal to, less than, equal to. Any questions before we move on? All right, everyone's favorite parts, loops. So loops are essentially a block of code. It's code that reiterate or repeat a specific block of code. It requires conditions that determine when the loop stops. Or if you're feeling wild, you can just put while true and let it execute until your machine breaks. But there are two types of loops, for loops, while loops. I will be going into depth for both of them in the coming slides. All right, let's start with the for loops. So the way for loops work is we have a placeholder variable. It could be I, A, B, whatever you want. You can have it like Harmon for if you want like that. But like you have a placeholder variable, and in this part, you can have either a list like this, you can have a range, or you can even use it for strings. Like for example, we saw hello. If x equals to hello, we could write for a in x, where it would iterate through that string hello. So as mentioned before, indentation definitely matters in all the if statements, all the while loops, for loops, everything. And now we've got the range function here. There are two ways you can write the range function. This way and this way. It's essentially just doing the same thing. So what this is in for b in range 4. What it goes is, it goes through the number 0, 1, 2, 3. It does not include 4. It includes all numbers up to 3, and then it prints out my list, and then this represents the index. So it'll print out A, B, C, but it'll not print out D. For this one, what this does is, this is the start value. This is an end value, and this is the step. You could modify the step as, for example, 2. So you would go, if you were to modify that as 2, it would be 0, 2, and then stop, because next value is 4, and the 4 is the stop value. 4 is not inclusive, whereas 0 would be inclusive. So I have it summarized here. First value of the range is the starting value, which is included. Second value is the ending value, which is not included. And third value is the increment value. Any questions? Yes, no. It will print A, B, and C, but not D. So what this is, it goes through the list, it iterates until it has reached number 4 in its range function. And while it's going through, so it goes 0, 1, 2, 3, it'll actually print A, B, C, D. My bad. I apologize. It'll actually print A, B, C, D.
That's fine.
So it goes my list, index 0, it'll start off, it'll print A. Then index 1, B, 2, 3. It'll go like that. It'll end. It'll break off the loop, and whatever next code is remaining, it'll continue. So it'll, for example, move on, in this instance, move on to this piece of code over here, which will essentially perform the same operation.
This one.
Any questions? No problem. Yeah. A over here. The index value of that, yes. Yes. For the second piece, it will be A, B, C, D in like different lines of the console. Yeah. So, good question. So if you put 5 instead of 4, we've only got 4 elements over here, right? We got indexes 0, 1, 2, 3. Then it'll try and execute, because the for loop doesn't know that we only have that over here. This statement, for however, knows. So it says my list, and then it'll be index 4. We do not have an index 4 here. So it'll throw you an index out of bounds over there in the console, and it'll break over there.
So both range functions, it's exclusive.
Yeah, in both range functions, the number 4 over there is exclusive. You go up to that value, but you do not include that value. Yeah. Yes. So it will go up to, it has not reached this value 4 in its internal system. So it goes, okay, now my value is 0. I'll execute this once. I increment my value again. Now it's 1, execute. 2, execute. 3, execute. My next value is 4. 4 is equal to this. It will not execute, it will break off and it will move on to the remaining code. Yeah. Any questions? Any questions before we move on? All right. All right, while loops. So the syntax is as follows: while you input a Boolean condition, and then you have some code. So the condition in the bracket, you actually do not need a bracket here, but the condition in the bracket must result in a Boolean value. If you just say, for example, let's say my variable is x, and x we have set it to be equal to, I don't know, 4, for example. That will consider to be it as true. So it will execute as that while x is true. That will be the execution of it. The loop will execute as long as this condition over here is true, and it is useful over for loops when you do not have a set number of iterations in mind. You do not know exactly how many times you want the loop to execute. So let's look at some code here. All right, you got the same list. We set a variable I equal to 0. Okay, before we move on, shout it out. What is the type of I? What does variable I have the type of?
Yeah, okay.
Integer, nice.
Yeah, this one wasn't.
Alright, so you
It seems kind of hard, but you just
nice.
gotta go through it.
While I is less than 4,
For this one,
you print it out and then you increment it. You need to increment this, otherwise this is essentially a while true loop. Because if the I value is not being incremented,
just three to
this condition will always remain true and it will continue looping until you stop the code. Now over here, this is an interesting one. Similar code, but then we have an if statement in here, which says if I is equal to 2, break, and then I plus 1. What do you think will happen when I is equal to 2 over here? Okay, perfect. Yeah, exactly. So it'll exit the loop. It'll completely exit the loop and move on to whatever code is remaining in the file. So it'll print, in this case, it'll only print out A, B, and C. It'll not print out D because we don't allow it to reach the letter D over there. All right. Yep. Why I is less than equal to 2? Yeah. Yeah. That should work as well. Yeah. Then this statement would be redundant. Then you don't need to worry about that. Yeah. This is just there to show you the functionality that this is an option which you can implement if you need to break out of the loop if a certain condition gets validated. Yeah.
What's gonna create the first scenario? Is it gonna be A, B, C, D, or is it gonna go through the list? Like,
and it will be A, B, C, D on different lines. So it's similar to what the for loop I showed in the previous slide. It's doing the same operation there. It's going to take the list, take the I value acts as the index. It gets the element at that index and prints it out. Then then I plus equals to 1 that increments the I value. And it keeps going like that until as long as I less than equal to as long as I is less than 4. Yeah. Because we do not like in a for loop, if you go back to slide. In a for loop, this or over even in here, it automatically assumes that we have something, we start at index 0 or whatever. We go to the next one. Here we have a purely Boolean expression. It does not know what we are trying to do exactly. So we have an I equals 0, which we intended to act as an index. We need to initialize a variable. You cannot initialize it inside the while loop because then it will not be able to access it for its execution at the beginning. So we initialize this loop executes, and then it gets implemented here. Yeah. Someone over here has a question? Yeah. Okay. So what plus equal, the way you can think of what plus equal does is it's equal to I is equal to I plus 1. So let's say the initial value of I is 0. we do I equals to I plus one, so it's zero, I is equal to 0 plus one, which would be the new value of I would be one.
I'm not sure.
We're just incrementing the value, we're just updating the value to be like, oh, just add one more to that value, so now our new value is one or two. So if you were to do I plus equals to 2, it would be, if you start at 0, the next value would be 2, then 4, then 6, then 8, so on and so forth. Yeah.
Hi, for that second bullet, I understand that A and then B, and then right before.
Yes, it will print, you're talking about this one, right? Yeah, it will print C because the print statement is before the if statement. The way, again, keep in mind the way Python works, it executes statements in order. And most programming languages work like that. So if this print statement is before, which is in this case, it will print out C, then it will the if statement. If I is equal to 2, then break out the loop. And that's why the D is not printed. If this was reversed, if you were to put this statement after here, then it would not, because then it is like, okay, I is already equal to 2. That means the remaining of the loop does not need to be executed. We exit automatically. Any more questions? Yeah. For loop stops after the break, for loop exits after the break, or it exits if this is violated. Yeah. Any more questions regarding this before we move on? Oh, okay. I guess we're going to move on then.
That's it.
Yeah, so we have reached the end of the presentation kind of slide. Any questions on the material so far that we have explained? We will be going over like sample questions that you may see on the exam right after this slide. It should be based on the information that we have received from the 1P13. There might, did you find anything that was not hard? For example? Yeah.
It's gonna be
Yeah.
easy.
Based on the information we received, I think we tried to cover everything that was all the concepts. There may be some concepts that we might have not covered, we might have probably missed or something that might be a case. But yeah, if you have any questions even later after this, shoot us a message on even on GDSC Discord or something. Yeah. We contacted the INS and tried to get it from the Indian side. I did not put in the motion. Okay, so I believe ask us so I believe or lock them in someone. They should be putting something for have they thought? Really?
I don't even, I'm not listening. What is this? What is this? Yeah. It's like blank. Like, what's going on? What was the question?
Guys, one major thing, I'm hearing that apparently files was covered. We are not covering files in this one because, well, we weren't aware that it was covered. So sorry about that. Confirm, ask the props, ask the CAs, whoever, get them to confirm what exactly is going to be on there so that you really study what you really need to. I mean,
I think there was, I'm pretty sure it was.
you were up, yeah.
It wasn't within the lecture.
That's weird. It's took a long time. Last year. Like an hour.
But in most scenarios, you can use either the for loop or the while loop. It does not really matter. Off the top of my head, I cannot think exactly like a specific scenario as to where while would be specifically important or for, because there are ways to implement both of them. But you just look at which one you're more comfortable implementing, which one is more intuitive to you, which one comes up in your head, initially, and go with it. There is no real wrong way, and there is no one way to go. But yeah. Any more questions before we move on? Yeah, we were, that was my bad. I apologize. All right, any more questions? Other questions, comments, concerns? Before we move on to some practice sample questions. All right, I see no more hands. Go 3, 2, 1, and we got some exam practice. Over to Hussein.
All right, I'll take the first one. Which of the following is true regarding functions? So I went over functions. Function definitions are useful because they can reduce the duplication of code. Function definitions are an application of modularity. Function applications can be used as both statements and expressions. But every function definition has its own namespace, or all of the above. And then anyone want to give their shot? Each shout out as well. I'll be right, and yeah, you guys are ready.
Wait, hold on, got a question.
What question? Yeah, sorry. Say again.
What is this?
Oh yeah, function definition of application of modularity. Basically, the word modularity really refers to code being able to function on their own. So like an example of when you use functions is when you want to separate different parts of the code to do specific things. So like you can have a function just for adding, a function for subtraction. That's specifically what modularity means, just separating your code into actually like single functions. Yeah. The last one, I'll give up. Every function definition has its own namespace. I believe what this means is I think it's literally just what namespace means. So basically you can name your functions like differently, I think. I don't know. I know with functions like this, once you see one or two or more of them right, it's probably all of the above. I don't exactly know what namespace really means in this scenario, but yeah. More questions? All right, the next question. Which of the following is true about the fragment below? So we have a simple form here for A and B and C. So I think this one's pretty easy, but I'm gonna go through them. B must be a list, D must be a string, C is an iteration variable. The name of the variable A could be changed to I, or none of the above. Anyone want to give this one a shot? Oh yeah. Yeah. And just to confirm. Yeah, you got it right. What's your name again?
Ryan.
Ryan. Got it right. You chose this one. Basically, this variable A could be changed to any variable just because it's an iteration variable. It's not actually used in the rest of the for loop, so it doesn't really matter. I think that was pretty easy. Any questions? Yeah. Iteration variable, just like a variable that like goes to the actual loop. So I think Armin made a mention basically this iteration variable goes through the whatever this could be from this or whatever. But yeah, basically the iteration variable is used. Yeah. Doesn't have to be. No, A can just be anything, just like you have I here, it can just be, doesn't have to be a line and a for loop. In a while, we have to like set it to 0, for example, but for for loops, we can having yeah. Oh, it could be string or it could be something else, like, remember somebody mentioned, you could be either a Smith string or this range, maybe I can also list. But it could be something else, but half of it, so. Yeah. You see that? Scenario C could just be predefined, could be something else. Here, if you didn't define C before the formula, then you would get an error because it's not defined. But you don't have to set the iteration variable. You can just print anything depending on whatever your code wants to do. This is just an example. So, yeah. Any more questions? All right, let's move on. All right, this next question is quite a lot.
You want to zoom in?
Yeah.
It shows that the
Oh, okay.
They're like. Yeah.
All right, so I'm just gonna go through this question. It's quite long. So basically, you have a lot going on here. Basically, you have two different functions, and then you have A and B, which are separate lists, and then you have scripts. So with these types of questions, it's really important to just go through them slowly, carefully. So firstly, you have a sum function. You don't really have to go through it right now because it's going to be used later on. But you can kind of think about what you've done. It kind of adds two variables together. Again, we'll get to it once we go through it. Then we have you define an add function. And this again, you don't have to go through it right now. The reason I'm saying you don't really have to go through it right now is because when you define functions in Python, it doesn't actually do anything in terms of the output. It just stores the function so it's available to be used. But like if you just define it and don't do anything else, nothing would actually be output. Okay, so if we go through the rest of the code, we have two lists here, A and B. And so these are very interesting lists because they're lists in a list, they're 2D arrays, I believe. And so you have this sublist and this sublist within the full sublet. You ever want to see that? Yeah. And the same for B, you have this sublet and this sublet in the full sublet. And so what we're doing this code is we're putting add A and B. Before I actually get into the explanation, does anyone want to make sure I start it? You know, the answer already? Oh yeah.
Wait, is it like adding together, like three to and then 1, 2, 6?
Yeah, exactly.
I can't see the answer.
Oh, okay, well, you got it right. Basically add together, and just to go through it. Again, so we have the code to add A and B. So if we go to the add function with the input A and B, we first define a list B, and for I range the length of A. Now it's very important to take note, the length of A isn't included in the entire length. Remember, it's two sublists within the list, and so A just has two sublists, and so the length of A will be 2 in this case, because again, there's just 2 items in the entire list, so we just have the length of 2. And so for I range length of 2, you append. Now we're going into the sum function, A at I and B at I. And so again, here we have we're calling the sum function in here with A at I remember it is 0 and 1 because the point is going to 2. And so A at I would start off with A at 0 and B at I would be at 0. These A at 0 would be this first sublist, and then B at I would be this second sublist. And then now up here we have sum A and B with the sublist, just these parts. And so we just flag a list F to be empty. And now we're going through the range of length of just A. Remember this A is referred to the sublist. So now we have a length of 3. So the range goes to, this is range 3. And so I go from 0 to 1 to 2. And now appends A at I and B at I, so appends A at 0, B at 0, appends A at 1, B at 1, and A at 2 and 2. Another thing with these types of questions, they're quite long and hard, but once you figure out one part of the question, usually the answers are quite different. So you can just kind of pick the one that matches your first part of the answer, just to save a lot of time, because otherwise you get stuck wasting a lot of time. And so, yeah. Yeah, it's not just the picture. Gotta make sure you pay attention to what's going on. Here we have A at I. Now remember A at I starts at 0. And so we're using the sum function. And so A, the large A at I, the two functions, sum right here. So A at 0 for large A would be this sublist. And so that's what is the sum function of the first tuple here. And so that's why the small is A at 0. So that's why this is the small. Any more questions? Yeah. Yeah, little a and little b are the sublist. Any more questions? All right, I think we're good. For 7.
Oh, we did both?
Yeah. No, wait.
Okay, now we'll get question 10. So question 10 says, which of the following expressions result from the round 2? Does anyone know what the answer is?
Yeah.
So what's the answer should only be like one option.
Which? Fourth one.
Or is it one option? Yeah, it's true.
Yeah.
Is there any questions for that one?
Any questions before we move on?
Yeah, essentially, we're doing minus.
That is 6.4.
And minus division representing
38 divided by 6.
So this case, 38 divided by 6 is the
He's explaining. He's explaining.
Sorry, did you get that?
Really.
Essentially, the highest whole number, that will allow you to get 26 cents. So that's 6. That's 6 times 6 would be 36. And no, like essentially the largest whole number that will get you with 46 to 38. So in this case, it'll be 6. And then we do that with 22. So if you like, 6 times 6 is 36. And it'll change the reason that's the essentially. Yeah, that's 36.
Alright, again, just to iterate the modular is the aggregating function, so for terms of major aggregation this operation. And so yeah, so the main modular is 6. Oh, any questions? All right. Couple more, okay. So here we have a math expression up here, 3/3 times 10 to the -12 square root 2 times 2.5 times 10 to the 6. How would we express this as code? Does anyone want to venture a guess or the answer? No, that's not the answer, it's not both maybe. I'm gonna go through it after, but does anyone else have a try yet? A? No, it's not A. Yeah. It's not the third one, no. B, it's not B. D, it's the right answer. All right, so to go through all of them, you guys gotta remember, whenever you're doing math calculations, you got to use the math.pi. And so that immediately eliminates A and C, because you don't use math.pi here and here. And so after that, one thing to remember when you're doing division, you have to have the same type. So here we're doing 3 integer 3 divided by floating point 4.0. So because of that, elevation is error. And if you go through it, this is the right answer because again, we're doing 3 times pi divided by 4. And then all of that times 10 to the 12. Remember the 2 multiplication symbols, that's the power. Have a question? Yeah, so again, you have to have the same type of value when operation. So yeah. That question. So I believe that's just how Python kind of is. Like I believe whenever you're doing operations, you have to have the same 2 types. You could do 3.0 divided by 4.0 or 3 divided by 4. You just can't. Yeah. Again, that's just how Python is. Like when you have 2 different integer operations, the answer is still gonna be whatever the answer is, which in our case is 2 point. No, it's 0.05. But yeah, I think that's just how Python is exactly. Yeah.
That references the math library. Because this.
Yeah.
So the reason we write math.pi is because pi is a constant. And so technically we could also have a function and what we call it, variable called pi in our code above. And if you were to do it that way, this would we would not do math.pi. But since we are using the predefined constant in the Python library, using the math library that we have imported most probably before we write this code, we have to do math.pi in order to reference that, oh, we are accessing the math library, and within the math library, we are accessing the pi constant over there. So the math library does get imported before the code. Yes, you cannot do math.pi unless you import the math library. You import the math library at the top of your code. Just import math. Just write import math. That imports the math library, and then you access the function or the variable within the math library by doing math.pi. People, yeah. We can multiply this node in the beginning as well, yeah, that's fine. Over here like this. No, I think This is the question, at the start, we don't have a flow, but you have a flow, so how come it kind of works out? Basically, at the start, we're doing floating point 3 times, sorry, not floating point 3, integer 3 times lambda pi divided by 4, and so that returns a floating point. And then this also is a floating point, so you multiply by that, and again, this returns a floating point. So in the end, it all depends on a floating point number. Sorry? Why is that not? No, that one works. That's one that's good. Or are you talking about like this one? Yeah. So this one is ED divided by 4.0, so you can't mix the types here. The integer and the floating point.
You can divide it by a flow. Issue is, this is what defines the point. You know what it means. Can I use your laptop to simulate it?
We'll get back to that just to make sure, but I believe what I said is right in that the reason we can't do this is because these are the two types that like are mentioned first, and that's why the violation we're gonna confirm that. Yeah. Any more questions?
So that's actually also valid. The top one's also. Uh, yeah, the answer is both B and D.
Oh, so there's both.
The answer is both B and D.
All right, so we actually just tested it. I mean, my final video is right over there.
You were right.
So now
It is both B and D.
So that makes me, you also, mine also right. The answer is actually B and D. So basically, it's also right, because apparently you can use these two, there's no difference actually disclosure application. We defined by 4.0. So that also is B, right? Sorry. So yeah, so you got that, yeah, B and D is right,
Yeah.
And next question. All right, so let's find out, which line is legal over here essentially. So which line in the following line of, like, following lines,
Questions.
will it cause an error? So we got product equal 1 for D in range 272, product equal product times D, print D, print guide. Which line? All right, yeah,
I have a question about like questions.
okay.
Are we assuming that all of these lines are separate or that they're all supposed to fit in within like the program? Like,
What do you mean?
no, like the question we were just on.
Oh, okay.
Like, are they all separate or are they supposed to?
This is one program. This is one program file. Yeah. You're saying number 3? Let's find out. Yeah. Is it number 3? Yeah, it's number 3. You're correct. Good job. Yeah. All right, before we move on to this question, any questions?
Question.
Because it is not indented. Indentation matters. Currently, this is the wrong syntax for the for loop because the for loop does not have a body. If this was indented, this needs to be indented and this needs to be indented actually. The reason 3 provides the error and not 4 is because this line comes first and this has the first initial wrong syntax. If this was intended, but this was not, then it would be line 4 because D is not declared anywhere in the code. Yes, so that was my bad, I should have explained that. Any questions? Any questions before we move on to the next block? Okay, we're moving on to the next block. Okay. The following program runs but gives incorrect output. What will be printed by this program if the user input is 19? Cannot,
Yeah.
okay. I'll keep that in mind, but I need
correct
to
it.
go for the options properly for it.
Yeah.
So this is a block of if statements. It's got conditions, it's got code. Options are can drink, drive, vote, cannot drink or drive or vote. Can drive and vote, but cannot drink, can drive, but cannot drink or vote. None of the options are correct. Which one? You said B? That is wrong. Not me.
Another question.
I don't know if you can, because like, I tried zooming in and
You can, right?
I don't think you can.
Yes. That is all correct.
Just zoom into your phone. Put enter age.
Okay.
Just like I heard you guys. It's like, when you say sir, you're first. Yeah, exactly. Then I go.
All the brackets don't matter. Brackets don't matter. Yeah, for what, yeah, based on the current code. That is correct, actually. The answer is none of the above. If you, can you move on to the next one?
I did, right?
One more.
Oh, wow.
The actual output of this would be this. These are if statements and not elif. These are not exclusive. You need to keep in mind whether it's elif or if. If statements, if between if those are exclusive of each other. Elif means they're connected with each other. Keep that in mind. So since the age is 19, it will execute this. It will execute this, and it will execute this, and it will merge all of them together to provide that one wrong answer which no one likes. So the answer is none of the above. All right. Any questions before we move on? Any questions before we move on? Going 3, 2, 1, we're moving on. All right. It's not that deep. Okay. How many times will the following code print it's not that deep? Count is equal to 0. While count is less than 10, print is not that deep. How many times will it happen? All right. Let's do a poll. Let's do 4. How many think it's A? How many think it's B? How many think it's C? How many think it's D? People who said C are correct. It is infinite because we do not update the count variable here. It's a while true loop. It'll keep on going for eternity unless we don't stop it. Any questions? Any questions? Comments? Concerns? Yes, sir. The answer is infinite number of times.
It's 9. It's 9.
Yeah.
I don't know how
Any
to.
questions? Comments? Concerns before we move on to the next one? Yes, ma'am. Because we do not update the count variable inside the while loop. So the count always remains 0. And that statement always remains true. So that's essentially equal to a while true loop because we are doing nothing inside the for loop to make that condition false. Yeah. Any more questions, comments, concerns before we move on to the next round? No? No? As long as you don't update the count variable inside the for loop, it's going to be infinite number of times. If this was let's say 10, the while loop wouldn't even exist. Any more questions, comments, concerns? Alright, we move on to the next one. Which of the following most accurately describes an infinite loop? Think of how you would implement each of these in Python. A while loop with no condition, an interactive loop where the user never enters an input. All of the above, this should be actually in the bottom. Sorry, my bad. An interactive loop where the user does not know which input will end the program, an indefinite loop with a condition that will always evaluate to true. Any takers?
Oh, it's the last one.
Yes, sir. Last one, indefinite loop with a condition that will always evaluate to true. You are correct. Good job. Alright. Yeah. First one is wrong syntax for a while. You cannot have a while loop with no condition. You've got to have a condition. Second, an interactive loop where the user never enters an input. All loops don't need user to enter an input. That's wrong. Interactive loop where the user does not know which input will end the program. User doesn't need to know which loop will end the program. It happens internally. So, as long as the programmer knows which loop ends the program, you're fine. So that's why it's D. Final question of the evening, and then you can have your.
I thought that was it.
Yes.
I think that's it.
First one, no?
That's it.
Oh, that's it?
Yeah.
That is it. You can have your futures now. Line up.